The Asylum of the Grotesque. Why don't you try to love me the way that I love you? Said Paula. Perhaps if you just tried, you could find a better way to something deeper and more substantial, said Kate. I know it is within you. It has to be. All you need is to embrace it and place your trust in me, said Alex. I know that you flirt with all kinds of dirt, but beneath that, I know you want to love me like I love you, said Karen. If you let me, I will show you how to love without condition or cruelty. It can be done by all of us. Just let me try, said Caroline. I still hear these words from these women and more besides as I sit late at night in the large living room to the rear of one of my houses. It is on the first floor and provides me with a commanding view of the fields to the rear of the property, the occasional copse breaking up the undulating countryside. I had 2 bedrooms knocked together and created this living room where I prefer to sit and look out across the view as the sun vanishes and the cool calmness of the night arrives. The sky shifts from the medley of flaming oranges, reds and yellows to azure, and then the darkness descends. I would sit here with Karen, sitting in the large elbow chairs that face the window. Often we would say nothing, as around us the lamps would switch on, a gentle click signifying their creation of a pool of light as the timer activated them one by one. When my mind, which operates by triple track, dredges from my memory the words of these intimate partner primary sources, and I recall, this serves as a Hoover trigger, and I recall these individuals, traitors, each and every one. Whether I act upon their reappearance directly, or whether I cast them into oblivion as soon as they arrive, depends upon a variety of factors. What is undoubted the case is that I continue my control over these individuals, whether it is by dismissing them, or whether it is then contemplating how I shall hoover them, to draw fuel from them, to let them know that they remain my possession, even though the years have passed. That remains to be seen. When my time allows me, I leave the city behind and come out here to this house, so I can sit here, as I regard it as my castle, and with a glass of Chablis in hand, I will watch the sky change colour, as my mind assigns, formulates, collates, and decides. The occasional noise of a distant animal might be heard, but largely there is silence, the enveloping stillness of a calm world, until I hear their words. All of them meant what they said, and will say that they did so with the best of their intentions. I understood at the time that whilst what they stated was done with meaning, for I could see it in their eyes, they sought to challenge me. They sought to change me. They sought to usurp me as their king. I do not have girlfriends, partners, friends, or colleagues. I have subjects. As I looked into their eyes, whether it was the earnest green, the heartfelt hazel, the beseeching blue, or the inspiring grey, I can picture them as they tried to make me see a different way. They all wanted me to change. They wanted to make me something else. It was entirely unnecessary, and the beginning of the end for them. Karen no longer sits beside me. I rarely bring my girlfriends or partners that I acquire to this house. I prefer the solitude, if only for a few days. I, of course, periodically check my electronic devices and the winking displays, the study of information, the lists of messages, telephone calls and emails sustain me, as so many seek my attention, and I do not go without fuel. Without Karen, for she can no longer be here, I decide against having the lamps gently bloom, and instead I opt for the gathering darkness, for it is, cloaked within what I am able to sit and to plan. It is in this quiet that I can marshal my resources, that I can mark my targets, and organize my machinations. For I, as the Ultra, like those who are greater, have the capacity to sit and organize, to decide, to look into the future, to determine where my reach shall go, to determine which pieces shall be moved across the board and in which direction, at my behest, at my control. And that is how I am distinguished from those who are the lesser and mid-range of my kind. And even with the greater, my capacity for knowing, the level of my awareness sets me beyond them even so. When I sit in the gathering gloom, I continue to resist those pleas from the past to become that which is impossible for me to achieve. Impossible, for I cannot change. Impossible, for I have no desire to change. Why ought I, when I am effective as I am, when I always win? I prefer to remain that way, and I know there can be no other way, even if I entertained the possibility of change. It is unnecessary. I am an effective unit. It is here, also, that I prefer to walk amongst my trophies. I have a room within this house wherein I collect my trophies. It is there that I stride amidst the frozen tributes to my brilliance, as I am able to conjure up the images of each and every one of my conquests, as they are beautifully crafted statues, each in a pose denoting my victory over them. There is Siobhan, on her knees, looking up at me, as she begs me not to go, her pretty features contorted by the pain she is experiencing. Paula sits at a table, her hands clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with fear, as she fights to say nothing, terrified that a word might slip from her lips. Becky dangles limp, the strings rising upwards, attached to her hands, her feet, her head, her hips and other places, the broken puppet. Kate stands on tiptoe, her face a mask of anguish, as with one hand raised above her eyes, she peers into the distance as if searching for something, an empty dog lead in her hand. When I walk amongst them, I let my hands glide over the smooth stone that has captured their defeat and embodied it in an eternal stance. My fingers drift over open mouths, curled lips, tear-filled eyes, and flared nostrils. I savour the misery, the anger, and the dejection that has been injected into these statues. The thought fuel manifests. When I walk amongst them, I am reminded of my power, the hold that I have over these people who sought to change me, but could only ever disappoint me. Why would I ever want to do what they would have me do? Why would I embrace their suggestions when I can create these monuments to my omnipotence? These masterpieces of misery always reinforce that I am destined to do this, for this is what I am. I am assured, validated, and receive confirmation once again that my way is the only way, is the right way, when I walk in my asylum of the grotesque.